Welcome to the Protector Culture Podcast with Jimmy Graham. Jimmy is a veteran U.S. Navy SEAL, a former protective officer for the CIA Global Response Staff, founder and CEO of the Able Shepherd Program, a husband and father of four, and a personal friend of mine. Now here's Jimmy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Protector Culture Podcast with Jimmy Graham. I'm your host, Jimmy Graham. We're doing something a little different today. So, obviously, in the mobile studio, and I joke about how much work I get done in my truck. I love my truck. What if you had a studio you could go to and just, if it had Wi-Fi, and it had a comfortable chair, and there was silence, and there were no amazing little children that demand attention, and you could just focus on your work. I spend a lot of time in the back of my truck kind of hiding from the world with a hotspot and get some work done. But when the summer hit, as I encourage everyone to do, we're going to talk about that with green pin dates, and then a recent trip that I took is carving out that time to spend with your family. So the good news about summer is everybody's doing that. The bad news about summer is everybody's doing that. So it's hard to sit down and get podcasts. You know, it's been several weeks since we've launched a podcast, and there's content that's building up inside of me that needs to get out, and our resources are kind of spread out. So anyways, I can't wait any longer, so I'm going right for my truck, and we're going to be more of this. We're going to shoot for like more content, because things are happening at an amazing rate, both good, meaning our country is going down the toilet, and bad that our country's going down the toilet, and good that men are rising up. So that people are coming out like this movie, Sound of Freedom. We got a whole other podcast on that, bringing it front and center that this is what's happening in our nation. That's horrible. And then the good part of that is people know about it, but what are they going to do about it? Are they just going to see a movie, send $50 somewhere, and then move on, knowing that children are being targeted? So that's all coming in a later podcast. But the one that's burning that I need to get out of me and to you is we talk about green pin dates. Green pin dates came to me. When I say my green pin, at one point I was working for, my primary job was teaching CIA, for the CIA's program for GRS, Global Response Staff, of who's going to come out and protect diplomats overseas. You know, so it's noble. It's, you know, not that I agree with everything the CIA is doing, but my job was to teach people how to keep those folks alive. They shouldn't be murdered. Whether I agree or even understand what's going on between them and a terrorist cell, while they're negotiating a deal on behalf of the United States, they shouldn't be murdered. So that's the kind of thing that we wanted to, obviously train to, so we would have a level of proficiency to keep those people alive. Much of my time was out working with these organizations that were third party. I was a direct hire contractor for the CIA. So I got paid directly from the CIA. My deal was with the CIA. All of my standards are from the CIA. But it took me either to the East Coast for 3.5 weeks at a time or overseas for 2 months. So it was a lot of time. So when I built out a calendar, I remember getting a year to glance calendar and taking out my pen, and that one was a red pen, and saying I need to be on the East Coast in Maryland or Northern Virginia, training and vetting these people to be able to go overseas and do this job with a capability. And then a black pen came out and said they need me actually to go overseas for 2 months right here, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 months, 3 weeks, 2 months, something like that. But I was also in the SEAL Team Reserve, so I took out a blue pen and I marked off all the blue that they needed me for 5 weeks. They did the 2 weeks out of the month, whatever it is, 2 weeks out of the year, 1 week in a month. They add all that up into flex time, and they'd send me to South America, and they would cross train with people, and eventually being a chief and having to run all that stuff. It just took a lot of time and energy. So I've got all these colors on there, and my last pen was my green pen, so a marker, and I would mark off, okay, I'm home, but not just home, what am I dedicating to my family? Maybe we'll go here. And they were young at the time, so what do little kids do? They go to the pool, they go to the hot springs. I was living in Montana at the time. And my wife walks in, and she says, did we win? And I'm like, what do you mean, did we win? She goes, well, what color are we? And my face dropped when I had to tell her that the family was the green pen, represented by the little fragments of green on this year schedule was their time. I had always committed to being a good husband and a good father, and obviously work in progress, as my Pastor Jeff says from Brave Church, not perfectly, but increasingly, right? So getting better and better and better, but when I saw that it was a slap in the face, I said, you're messing this up. So once the business, I won't even say got cash positive or even stable, once we got to a place where I had to rework my schedule and it was up to me, it's easy to complain about your schedule until you realize you're self-employed and you're the one that makes the schedule. So we reworked it and we started with our green pen first. So this thing that I call green pen first, it doesn't mean your time off, like everybody should have this abundant time off. It's just not fair to your employer. But what are you doing with your actual time? So you may work a 40-hour week. What are you doing with the rest of that? What are you doing on the weekends? What are you doing in your evenings and all that? Is taking out that green pen. And this is the first way that I would challenge a lot of you, especially if you're a Christian. I took out my green marker and I blocked off every single Sunday of the year, every single Sunday, right? And dedicated that to God, meaning my family, and we don't work. We came up with a phrase, we don't work Sundays. So we don't work Sundays has become a thing that we say regularly. Twice a week we look at it and say, we don't work Sundays. Here's what we do, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and then we say it out loud. We don't work Sundays. Then we move on to the next week and we plan that out. So it's a reminder. Then, maybe a year later, birthdays, if it's their birthday, Jimmy's not working this evening because I'm going to be blowing out birthday candles and all that stuff with my kiddos. What about family trips? We took our first, what I would call an official, go somewhere with your family dedicated to them, was last year. We went, my oldest daughter got scuba qualification. So, as a 14-year-old, getting a piece of paper that says you can scuba dive for the rest of your life and it's got your picture on it and you passed a test, and it was a little challenging and a little scary, and now you can do that. It was a big deal, right? So making the time for all of those moments to happen is up to you, right? And it's like, well, I don't get a month off like I did in the military where I can just plan it out, right? But what do you get off? What can you take? I don't make enough money. I drive over the pass from Sedalia, I think it's 67, jump over the mountain range, I'm at the river. You go get a bunch of, teenagers at the river and watch them turn into kids. So making the time to do that. And it doesn't cost a lot. It costs a little gas money and some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and that's about it, right? And capture those moments. So I want to talk about those green pin dates and what a recent success was, where we planned with another family. Thank you so much, Everett, Melissa. What's better than having an amazing boat, having friends with an amazing boat, right? And the ones that actually plan for their families and go out and say, we're going to go to Table Rock Lake in Missouri. We're going to drive for the better part of 2 days. Once we get there, we're going to unplug for an entire week, and we're going to just be and just see what happens. We're going to spend time in the water. We're going to hang out. So the drive didn't sound like a lot of fun. But once you commit to it, we stopped at a hotel, got back up, they got to play in the pool, and then we launched. Once we got there, it was the devices off. It was hang out with your family and just create an opportunity for amazing things to happen. So I want to walk you through a couple of them that have really changed me. As you know, we've been talking about your body language. 60% of what you're communicating is through your body language, 30% with your tone, 10% with your actual words. And I've been working with Rachel. I've been working on my body language communicating with my wife. That's a big deal. And I've seen immediate feedback, immediate returns, meaning she's starting to replicate that back. So I tried that for the whole time. Absolute success, and hanging out with another couple. With my daughter, I'll just go oldest to youngest. With Rebecca, she has been kind of intrigued with surfing. Well, the problem is we live in Denver, Colorado, so where's she going to surf? Well, Everett's got a surf boat where he can sink cells, these bladders in this boat, create a wave, and amazing in his instruction with not only his kids but my kids on how to get up on a wakeboard, on how to do this and how to transition to throwing the rope in from starting kind of wakeboarding to throw the board in, and now you're surfing on a wave. You're going from being pulled to being pushed. So what I saw in her eyes when this whole infatuation with this idea of surfing to her actually surfing in the matter of a couple days, it was amazing. Like just seeing her become a kid again, to see her play with her siblings, to see, there's not many of those left, guys. She's 15 years old. She just got her driving permit. So that's absolute gold. That was a special moment that we got to do as a family because we made the space for it. Let's go to Sarah. Sarah, my 13-year-old, goes up on the rocks. We're going to jump off these little cliffs. And I'm not talking real high, 10, 15 feet. But up there, it looks a lot higher. So we're up there. They go up there. I jump off first. I put on some goggles, and I go underwater, and I just check. I know the locals do it, but they jump off here. But I go down and check just to make sure that it's safe. Then I do it. and then they're going to do it. Well, she goes up there and she is terrified. Her words, it's terrifying. And at first it's kind of scary and terrifying, but then I notice she really is terrified. The littler kids are jumping off, and she can't get over this fear of jumping off this cliff. And now it's almost time to go, and I notice she hasn't jumped. The other kids have jumped off a couple times. I'm like, hey, we got to get going. These flies are eating us up. We got to get back, and whatever, run out of daylight. And I look up, halfway joking, and I'm like, do you need your daddy? And she looks down with tears in her eyes. Now she's crying, and she's like, yes. Man, I am out of that boat. I dive out of that boat and scurry up those rocks like nobody's business, because I wasn't expecting yes. I was expecting, give me a minute. I'm a little teenager. I'm 13. I can figure this out. But she looks down at that boat with tears in her eyes, and she says, yes, I need my daddy. Don't miss those moments. So I get up there as fast as I possibly can, and I talk to her. She says, don't push me. I'm like, I'm not going to push you. Do you want to do this? We can walk down. We don't have to do this, right? And it's not unsafe. I mean, it's not. There's a risk in everything, but this isn't dangerous, right? I mean, you could pop an eardrum or you could do whatever. It's not high, but these kids are doing it, and there's nothing underneath there. And if you want to do it, let's do it. And she says, give me a minute. And I look at her, do you trust me? Okay, hold my hand. And you're going to step. I'm not going to pull you in, but if you're going to step, I'm going to follow you. What I do need to do is make sure if you leave this cliff, you leave the cliff. You can't get hung up in the middle and slide down some rocks. So she takes a minute, takes a deep breath, gives me a kiss. She jumps with me holding her hand. We go underwater, we come back out, and she's still, her eyes are crying, but her mouth is laughing, and then it turns into, she's proud of herself, for doing that. We get back in the boat, and she says, something you said gave me the courage, and man, just call that a win. So that would not have happened had we not made the space for that to happen. And it warmed my heart, it bonded us together, and it was amazing. Christian, my little guy, my lesson there, and my piece of gold with him was that he got up on the wakeboard and was outside the wake. And I'm like, hey, buddy, go over the wake. And he's like, no. I'm like, okay, no big deal. So he's going, and he's getting the hang of it, and he's going and riding, just finding his feel and taking his time. And I'm like, hey, just wanting to challenge him. Hey, go over the wake. Do you want to try it yet? And in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, just push him a little bit. Maybe he'll go over. And then finally, he's like, he tries it. And then he comes back in. He's trying to be all tough. He slammed down on his side. And he's like, you made me go over the wake. I'm like, buddy, I didn't make you do anything. And he's like, well, you kept saying it, meaning like he thought I was kind of demanding that he goes over the wake. And I'm like, hey, you don't have to go over there if you don't want to. He looked kind of bored, like he'd found your thing. I was just challenging, So we had a good conversation where he can say no to dad. Like I've told them from they were this big, no's a powerful word. And if you're not comfortable doing it, just say no. But in his mind, I was pressuring him to do it. And then we had that, and I was like, you forgive me, buddy? And he gave me a big hug, and I forgive you, Dad. And we just talked about it. And you figure it out. If you need time to feel it out, then do it. Good stuff. And then my little princess, Eden, 4 just turned 5. She had her birthday out there, so we're blowing out. Man, it's funny. We go to didn't remember candles. We knew her birthday. We had presents. So Dad pulls out, this is a lake house that we rented, and it was fantastic. Remember books of matches? So Dad pulls this out last minute, puts a bunch of paper matches from a book of matches in the cake, immediately uses a lighter to light all 5 of them. She blows them out, doesn't even know the difference, and it's a win. But the big win was when she spent a little too much time in the sun, and it was a lot. We're demanding, we're out there all day, every day, in the sun and swimming. It just kind of caught up to her, and she wasn't feeling good. She throws up, and then I'm like, guys, I'm gonna hang back with her. You guys go out and have a day on the water, right? And when they come back, they're like, hey man, sorry you missed that. And I'm like, brother, I didn't miss anything. I just spent the entire day at a lake house with just me and my 5-year-old, and it was gold. We played on the floor. We went down to the dock. It was a little too much. We got on the little sun lily pad thing and played, but then she was like, it's a little too much. She's like, Dad, let's go back in. So we go back in the air conditioning, and we're playing with her toys, and she falls asleep on my chest, and she starts feeling better, and then we're feeding her and doing all that kind of stuff. And I get to hang out with my 5-year-old, my baby girl, all day. And I feel bad for saying this. I've never done that before. I have never hung out with her all day. Just the rate of my life. I've never made the space to have me and her spend the day together. And I can't say that today because we did it, right? So that was good, and there'll be more of those. So no apologies necessary, because I missed one day of many days of boating and skiing and doing all that. And it was gold. So, Rachel and I grew up Lake of the Ozarks. We grew up Table Rock, so we remember lake life. And Rachel said it best. You don't realize you miss it until you go back. And you're like, wow. If any of you grew up on a lake, do you guys remember rushing down to the dock and playing hard in and out of the water all day until well into the night? You collapse in the bed and you wake up and do it again. It is absolute gold. And we missed it so much. We will definitely be back, probably be an annual thing. And Table Rock is so much cleaner and so much, it's just less populated than Lake of the Ozarks. And it was the cleaner water. Every day I swam across the lake towing children on the first day, like the first day that we got settled, all that kind of stuff, was a Monday through Friday, let's call it that. We were there a little bit before that. I just said I want to go swim across the lake because I've been missing my workouts. So I swam across the lake, but I towed the lily pad, the floatable deal that Everett bought, and just so I wouldn't get hit by a boat. I'm like, well, they'll see this, and they won't see some dudes swimming, but they'll see this. So I swam across, and it was awesome. So the next day, one of my kids was like, can I ride on that? And I'm like, sure. So the next day, there's like 3 or 4 of them. And then at one point, Sarah, Daddy just, kind of protected her and held her hand and jumped off the cliff. And the next day, she's protected me. I'm swimming across the lake. She's sitting on the deal, holding the diver down to the swimmer. When a skier falls over, there's an orange flag that you have in your boat. She's holding that up to protect her dad. When boats come by, she just holds it straight up in the air. They see us and they just go around because there's somebody obviously in the middle of the lake swimming across. Man, that's gold. That is such good stuff. One, physically, it really felt good to get in the water and get in a zone swimming, for an extended period of time without having to turn in a pool and do all that. The other thing is like she's got me. She's protecting Dad, and to all day, every day, just be. Like there's no phones going off. There's none of that stuff, and to share that with another family at night, to be able to walk around and bless and pray with your kids. And then there's another kid that's not even in your family, but you love them and you kill or die for them, and you include them. We just finished. We got a whole other podcast coming on last week, guys, because we just did this men's conference called "What Is a Man?" So much gold came out of that. I'm not even going to touch it today, except to say this: we came up with a bunch of flashcards of things that have been successful in my home. Like when my kids go to bed, they repeat after me. I love you. I love you. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. You're a good son or daughter. I love being your daddy. I thank God for you. I'm always here for you. And then I say, I love you always and forever. And they repeat back no matter what. And for me to just snatch a kid that's not even in my family and include them in that and saying, you're a good friend to us. And, always here for you. I love you always and forever. And they say, no matter what. With a little smile saying, I dig it. Right? It's like, it's a community thing. It's like, I love all kids. I don't just love my kids. And I think it is healthy for my kids to see Melissa and Everett, to see strength in other people and saying, hey, no, this is our standard too. We're going to watch our language. We're going to act responsibly when it comes to alcohol, when it comes to language, doing all that stuff. And this is an option for young men and women, and it's a good one. So that kind of gold, and to see my wife come alive and laugh and play and bake in the sun and doing all that. I can't sit still long enough to sunbathe or whatever you call it, laying out and catching rays. I burned my body up pretty good lifeguarding back in the day to where I should have been wearing sunscreen. So I've got the shirts that protect you and all that kind of stuff, but got a ton of sun and, burned and did all that kind of stuff. But just American goodness and lake life, I say it's the safer version of water. Like the ocean will kill you. Like you got to be on your toes 24/7 around the ocean. The work that goes to maintaining equipment in salt water is times 10. But a lake, growing up in a lake, still obviously have to respect the water, especially when little kids are on a dock or little kids, making sure they're accompanied. They got life jackets and the other kids are watching them and that adults are accountable and all that kind of stuff. But the pace of that lake life is one that I needed. So we are going to continue to look into this. We're going to continue to improve our green pin dates, invest in our children and model strength for them. One thing that popped into my head is a quote that I will butcher right now, but something to the effect of, on the plains of hesitation or the blackened bones of the countless millions that something about upon finding victory stopped to rest and in resting died. And I'll look that up and get that to you. But it doesn't mean don't rest. It means don't make a lifestyle of resting. Like neutral is going to get you nowhere. You got to be in a forward gear every day of your life moving forward. But that doesn't mean that rest is neutral. Like me resting for a week was a forward gear because my family, my community, my God demands it, right? It demands that I come back stronger. So you want to talk about a stronger man coming back after spending time recharging with his family and then launching into a 5-day men's ministry, really, but a men's seminar or conference to speak to other men of what is a man and what's your place in this world as you serve our God in this nation, and then to launch back into my work this week. If you think that's wrong, then you know what you're talking about. So, encouraging you guys to look at your green pin dates, to take out that green pin first when you look at it. Go ahead, if you want, swipe that thing clean, put down what your green pin dates are. I have a goal of making more green pin moments and dates and times with my kids every year, even if it's 1 hour or 1 day or 1 week, while they're in the home or for the rest of my life, of committing that time and saying, I'm going to create a space for the Holy Spirit to show up and bless my family. And not only will he has, and he will continue to do so. So, amazing message that God put into me to share with you on green pin dates, on kind of what that looks like in Jimmy Graham's life, called Table Rock Lake. And do it. Just do it. If we can't model strength for our young people in every aspect of our life, they're not going to know what strength is. So get after it. We're probably going to do a couple more kind of out of the mobile studio in order to get them from me to you. And we are tweaking what the studio looks like and where it's at, getting more stuff out on, we've got Patreon set up, trying to figure all that out. But big things are coming in the form of Men's Mission 001. We got to recap that. There's a movie that's rocking the nation right now called Sound of Freedom. We're going to do a separate podcast on that because there's too much content. We're going to talk about repurposing men through the church, through the business, through personal life, and giving you absolute tools, like tools that it's good to talk about this stuff, but you need the tools to employ. I don't like the term tool bag as much as I like tool belt. That's not a tool for the tool bag. You ever trying to get your Phillips head screwdriver out of a tool bag? You can't find it for 20 minutes, not 20 minutes, but you got to shuffle through to get it. This stuff you need right now. So the tool belt concept would be, I know where my pistol's at, I put it there and I grab it. I know where my mags are at, I know where all that stuff at. Why? Because I specifically put them there so they can be there in 1 second if I need them. So that concept we're going to stretch out a little further, and we're going to give you those tools to be a better man, a better woman, a better parent, a better son, a better leader, a better business owner. So love you guys, can't wait for what's next. God bless each and every one of you. Take care of one another.